For some people, Memorial Day is a day of celebration. You don't have to work. 3-day holiday. And you would think on a day like Memorial Day, a day that's about those who have died for our country and for the world. And it's a day of remembrance, and it's a solemn day. It should be a solemn weekend, and we should all take time out in our 3-day weekend to just sit and ponder what kind of sacrifices these guys made. And this guy, born in Chicago, June 4th, 1911. That's when it all started. Quickly moved to New York as a baby, raised most of his childhood in the nice upscale districts of New York. He learned to ski in Lake Placid and surrounding areas. Because he was close to the Canadian border, his dad was an international banker, he learned to speak a little French. And this guy was the first man killed in combat in World War II. And that distinction alone places him in a category all unto himself, and it should be a poster child for Memorial Day. Some of his friends early on called him Lindsay, and he signed his name LF, his initials. But as he got older, he went by Billy. And Billy was a tenacious individual. I don't think he was happy about having to move to France when he was 13, 14 years old. But as soon as he got there, he saw the Alps and saw the skiing that was much more advanced. And so he took to it because there was a toboggan run and sledding, which he could go really, really fast. He was fearless. Some people say he was kind of passive-aggressive, angry about the move to France. So he had this throwing caution to the wind kind of a I don't care what happens. And he was fearless. He was fearless, and he learned how to hold on and steer at the same time better than most people. And he won competitions in France as a 15-year-old. And he would hold on not to the outer side, but to the inner side of the steering wheel. That would give him greater stability and less margin of error if he were to lean too far one side or hold on too tight with one of his hands and alter the steering. So he was real stable, and he was into it. And you can see by the look of his comrades, the smiles on their faces, they were into it as well. At 16, he tried out for the Olympic team and made the Olympic team. Went to Switzerland and competed in Switzerland and the 5-man bobsled, and lo and behold, he won the gold medal. So after France, he moved to England, where he met a beautiful woman, and to impress her, he bought a green Bentley with turbocharge and everything. During his time, he made a brief trip to Colorado with an investor. They were looking at gold and silver claims, 10 cents on the dollar. When he got there, he found that he could put a ski lodge there, buy up a lot more homes, and work 5 cents on the dollar, and still keep people in their homes and give them jobs through a ski lodge and a ski lift. The mountains surrounding, you can see them in the background, reminded him of France. And soon he started all kinds of recreational ski business. With the boat tow was the first tow ever on the ski lift at this mining town. He hired and employed a gold medalist himself from Switzerland, a downhiller, to do everything here. He left everything in charge, and this man did a superb job. And I'll see if I'll credit his name at the end of this documentary. He boycotted the Olympics of 36 because of Hitler, but he did compete in the 1932 Olympics. And lo and behold, he won his second gold medal. And in doing so, etched his name in history again in his own right as a bobsledder. Not only a bobsledder, a gold medalist for the U.S. Olympic team, and get this, at the age of 16. Nobody else has 2 gold medals. Steve Holcomb has 3 medals and a gold. This guy was legally blind. He is a legend in his own right. These 2 guys are the pillar of USA bobsledding. This is what USA bobsledding was built upon. But Billy, he had 2 gold medals, was the youngest gold medalist on the planet Earth until the 90s. And then he entered the 24-hour Le Mans and again etched his name in history. The youngest American to go solo in the Le Mans. And yes, he drove his green Bentley. So England was his 3rd home, France was his 2nd home. But then the war started and they recalled him. They recalled him back to New York, but when these bombs fell on England, it was his wife's relatives. And it was her family being bombed. And it was his 3rd home. And he just could not sit by and just wonder what was going on. He went to Canada, and then he went to England. He claimed to be a Canadian citizen, joined the Royal Air Force, the 601 Squadron, at Tagmere Air Force Base. It was a Hurricane Hawker squadron. And the newer, faster Spitfires they did not have. These were heavier machines. The gas was underneath the front, and it could take a beating as long as you didn't put anything through that gas tank, which is Billy's downfall. Billy, his first solo flight, there were more people observing his first solo flight than in any other cadet in the Royal Air Force. Why? Because he was famous. He was a 2-time gold medalist. And now his Bentley was kind of the talk of the town. And so on his solo flight, he peeled off and did some maneuvers, made tight turns, buzzed the field, climbed, did a roll while he climbed, did no loops, and did no dives. But the tight turns and the way he pulled up and the way he turned his plane over on a solo flight earned him the admiration of his superiors. And one of the only color photographs of that squadron was after they had put him in the infirmary. But so he completed the 24-hour Le Mans, the youngest, the first everywhere he went, and etching his name in history, never to be erased or replaced, solid as gold. The green Bentley was always parked outside the airfield. The wives would come. They called this the Millionaire Squadron because these were all sons of millionaires in England. But then came the Battle of Britain. England had a superb strategy. Only set up handfuls of planes, let the fighters run out of gas. When they returned, then they swarmed the bombers and inflicted heavy losses. When a return bombing mission accidentally hit a civilian target, Germany decided to carpet bomb England over a period of a few days. But due to an amazing advanced radar warning, these guys were in the air and waiting every time the planes would attack from France. But they were German planes, of course. And Billy was thrust into war, into battle. And he could fly, and he could fight, but could he kill? Would he hesitate? And by the body language of his comrades, you can tell they are all visibly shaken by Billy's ordeal when they had to extract him from a burning plane. You see, after 15 minutes in the air, Billy took a bullet through that front tank, and it caught on fire, but was still flyable. And this squadron did an excellent job with these older, slower fighters, because they took down 8 Stuka dive bombers that day. They shot down 8. Billy was led in blind. He tried to put the fire out in the cockpit, but you can see that little bulge in the underbelly just behind the prop. That's a fuel tank. And so his feet were on fire. But the cables still stayed intact, and the Battle of Britain ensued. In a bunker, Winston Churchill turned to the commander of his air command and said, "We need to get every plane in the air that we got. We need no planes on the ground." And the commander turned and looked at him, and he said, "We have. We are." And we did. Very solemn moment. So Billy's comrades raced to the plane, and you could see they would have to climb up onto a burning plane if they were to rescue him. So he did do a belly landing so that the comrades could extract him and help him out of the cockpit, a burning cockpit, while under active fire. No kidding. He put his plane down in between bomb craters and was extracted. His burning body now extinguished, but smoking. People said the smoke was coming from the stretcher. And so Billy ended up going to a field hospital, taken by ambulance while under fire. He was sitting up in his bed, bandaged, of course, not feeling much pain because, well, most of his nerve endings were dead in third-degree burns. And he was making self-depreciating remarks. He was joking with the staff. He seemed to be in good spirits and was very reassuring to his wife at that time. And his green Bentley, of course, parked now in the hospital parking lot. And he was beloved. Everybody loved him. And he took them on joyrides in his Bentley, flying 120 miles an hour down roads to just go for a game of golf. Able to squeeze them in. He let them drive his car. They were all a family of millionaire boys, drawing light duty until this happened. Now, Tagmir Air Force Base was attacked by a squadron of Stuka dive bombers. They made it past the fighters, and basically you can see most of the airfields in England were dirt. They were grass. They were fields. So any bomb craters were easily bulldozed over, and they could restore. They had dozens and dozens of air bases with smaller numbers of planes so that no one air base could suffer a large casualty. And this fearless one, people wonder why he didn't bail out. People wonder why he didn't just turn the plane over and get out. People speculate that he must have felt like an idiot inside, taking a bullet, catching his plane on fire, ruining his plane without ever getting a shot off. It was probably embarrassing for him, somebody so used to winning. And no, he didn't win the Le Mans. But he did etch his name in Le Mans history. And when the next morning, when people went by the hospital, before they got in the door, they noticed something was different. They noticed that the green Bentley was not parked. And on August 17th, 1940, Billy again was etched into the history as being the first American to die in combat during World War II. A two-time gold medal Olympian champion that his name will never get mentioned during an Olympic bobsled telecast. And he did boycott Hitler's Olympic. And this portrait is a frivolous portrait. And it's become rather telling that not only did he boycott Hitler's Olympics, he fought against his airmen. There's a memorial in the cathedral in which he was memorialized. And now, since telling this amazing story 3 times, other people don't want us to be the only ones telling this amazing story. Other people have jumped on this bandwagon, hallelujah. And now online you can find all kinds of things about Billy Fiske, from his signature to his passport. There's archives now, Billy Fiske archives. There's a memorial cup that Aspen, Colorado gives to the national champions of the 4-man bobsled, named after Billy Fiske, called, I think it was the William Fiske Memorial Cup. So 1928 gold medalist, 1932 gold medalist, 1936 he boycotted Hitler's Olympics. And he was obscure. Even the documentary where I first learned about him, I watched that like 15, 20 years ago. And that documentary never came up. In fact, for the longest time, it wouldn't even show up on searches, deep searches for documentaries. So, amazing story, interviewing his comrades, how 15, 20 years after his death, they would still talk about him and shed a tear. One last thing. That mining town that he wanted so desperately to turn into a skiing town in Colorado, and in doing so set a trend and a model that would rescue all the mining towns in the state of Colorado. Well, you know that town. You know it well. It's known as Aspen, Colorado. Again, thank you for listening.